Well, first of all, thank you all for coming, and glad to have Jason here from Neutrino Group, builder of Infinity machines and other assorted steno goodies. I'm gonna mute everybody as of now. Um, if you have questions or you have a statement or whatever, you can always unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone in your picture, and I'll turn it back on. Um, you can also push your flag button in the upper right-hand corner or or the lower left, depending on where your version is, and that way we know you have something to say. Also, you have a little chat button. You can punch a question in there. So there's many ways you can reach us. I'm going to mute everybody now for a moment. Okay, so now it should just be Jason and me here. Jason, you there?
I am.
Okay, cool. So I've been in this industry for about 20 years now, and I've kind of seen the evolution of Neutrino Group and Infinity machines all the way from the first one, the Geminis and the Pipers and the Revolution and so on. So why don't you give us a little background first of the company and where it's been and where it's going?
Sure. So originally, I bought the company in 2004. So this January, it'll be 11 years. I bought it from Bill Robson, who he and his brother originally started Cheetah some 28 plus years ago at this point. They then created a rider called the Gemini rider. So more than 24, 25 years ago, the Gemini rider came on the scene. It was the first ergonomic court reporting machine made. Basically, ergonomic being that it could be split and spread into two pieces. It was really inexpensive, and it was designed only for captioners, no backups, no ability to move around. When I bought the company in 2004, I bought it for one simple reason. The people that I saw in reporting often had ergonomic injuries related to their equipment. So the Gemini was really the solution for that. Moving forward, the Gemini had a lot of limitations in it. As I said, it was only for captioners. It was not for court reporters. It definitely didn't fall into the CART mainstream. It was loud. It had a lot of limitations. But the one thing that I did hear universally was that it made people feel better and that it maximized their career and prevented injury. So now having that to build from, we started down a path of creating Gemini into a better rider, which later would become the Piper, which was the first machine to integrate Bluetooth directly inside of the machine. We introduced basic color palettes into the market so that you could customize your machine to fit your personality as well as your preference. We then took that a step further, and the Piper still had limitations. It was still noisier. It lacked adjustability. It wasn't able to be customized to the end user. So my first design, or actually somewhere on a trip back from Connecticut, I had a bit of an epiphany for a mechanical-based machine, so a machine with actuated arms like you have today, that would then become the original Revolution. Quite frankly, an entirely overly complex machine for what we needed it to do, but it was the foundation for what would become the Revolution Grand, the next generation. So we still kept some of the adjustability, or we added adjustability, but now we had a quiet machine. None of our machines had internal memory at this point, so we had integrated external backup devices like iPacs and Palm Pilots and mini computers. So long before tablet computers became a thing, we had introduced the first tablet with the Revolution some 7 or so years ago. Moving forward, fast forwarding to now, the next iteration of riders was we needed a rider that could be completely customizable, one that could be tuned or tailored to fit the end user, because no matter who you are, whether it's Holly or Jackie or Susan in this case, the rider really has always been about having the reporter get used to it. It feels different. It writes different. It doesn't respond to my particular finger inadequacies or issues. So in the Infinity, I came up with a machine that was a magnetic-based machine. Lo and behold, actually, Stenograph and I were developing the same platform of technology in very similar timeframes, independent of each other. I had no knowledge of what they were doing, and they had no knowledge of what we were doing, but that's where we kind of separate and go our own ways. As far as the Infinity goes, it's all about customizing the rider's end experience. So it's completely adjustable. The name actually comes from basically an infinite platform of adjustability, whether it be individual activation or deactivation or all those things that go into just making a rider more responsive to the end user. But I wanted to take it a step further. So at this point, up to 4 years ago or so, we only made ergonomic machines. So the split machines, the ones that are in two pieces, each hand can sit close together, far apart, whatever. So 4 years ago, we released our first traditional machine. That traditional machine had two major requirements. One, it had to be completely, we had to be able to take it apart, keep most of the components, and move it into an ergonomic machine. The reason being is so many people have physical injuries that we want to be able to keep them in their machine and move them on. So what we were able to do for the first time in history was take a machine, break its components out into individual parts, so that if you did have a traditional machine of ours and that you needed an ergonomic machine for a few $100s instead of another $5,000, you could move to an ergonomic machine. Or the reverse was true. Say you bought an ergonomic machine thinking it would be the best thing for you, but only found out later that, I'm really not into this ergonomic thing. It doesn't fit my personality. I'm much more of a traditional person. So we can move you back to an ergonomic or back to a traditional machine and save you on that side as well. So basically just, again, giving the user the ability to control. In addition to that, we released what would become 7 different models of each version of machine. So 14 different machines. Basically, we had a student machine with screen, a student machine without screen. We had an ergonomic student machine with screen, without screen. We introduced cart models, capture models, and all of those models spanned price points. So starting down in the $1,500 range, all the way up to our court models in the $5,100 range. The whole goal there is, again, the user can decide what you want, and it's the first time a rider has been completely upgradable. So if you're a student and you buy a student machine today, and you then graduate that student machine, you send it into us. For just the cost difference of the student to the professional, we can go ahead and upgrade you to the new machine. There are huge advantages to that. One, it's your machine. So there's no getting used to it again. There's no changing your riding to fit it. And two, it saves you a ton of money over time. Along those same lines, we also had the capability, if you were doing captioning now but wanted to go back into the court realm, you could use our captioning machine for now and then upgrade it to a court machine. Basically add the memories and the backups and the displays, the things that you need to make it a court-ready product or a depot-ready product. Now, having said all of that, I mean, our real goal over the last 10 years or so has been innovation, driving better products, driving more technology into the market, and making that at a rate that's affordable. All of our machines are upgradable. Susan, who's on the line, she just upgraded one of her machines from our Gen 1 Infinity to our new now Gen O Infinity. And everything I do is really geared towards how do we make the product better. It's really simple. And she can do that upgrade a lot less than it costs to buy a new machine. So in terms of size and weight, our machines are the smallest and the lightest you're going to find in the market. In terms of adjustability, they're the most adjustable machines on the market. With our Gen O models, we've introduced things like internal microphones, less wear and tear and maintenance parts, so integrating technology designs so that you don't have to have your machine serviced nearly as often. And then we've also introduced a concept with the Infinities, a piece of software that we call Infinity 2, or i2. It's the second part of the Infinity family. It allows us to actually, with your permission, get onto your computer with you and make adjustments to your machine through the computer, through a USB interface. The idea there is you don't have to be an expert in your machine, but our techs can help guide you in a way to make that much more user-friendly. We've introduced additional technologies like paper-like notes, which is a electronic rendition of paper, lets you see whether or not you're stacking or shadowing or splitting or dragging keys. So just a ton of flexibility there.
Wow, you covered a lot there. Okay.
But you asked for it.
I had a lot of questions on my list. I have a lot fewer now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So I think, and again, if anybody has anything, they have pertaining to something he said, feel free to unmute your microphone or raise your hand or whatever.
Yeah, please do.
When you talk in terms of all the different changes you can make to the machines, I think a lot of people just think, oh, ergonomic, you can split it, move it, bend it, but you're also talking about the actual keys as well.
Yeah, when we're talking about adjustments, we don't mean just simply like the ergonomic machine positioning. We're talking about actually tailoring the machine to fit your writing style. Whether that's an incredibly short stroke where you're very accurate, 2.5 millimeters, or an incredibly long stroke. Our goal is to tailor the machine to fit you. The example I use is it. If I go in and buy a suit off of a Macy's rack, it's okay. It might fit me decently. I can then have that suit kind of customized to my body proportion within some range, and it will fit a little better and it will look better. And then the final thing is I can actually have a tailor make a suit that's fit to my exact body proportions. The fact that my right arm is a quarter inch longer than my left arm, or whatever the case may be. It really lets that suit do everything that I wanted it to do to maximize to me, whoever I am. And the goal is the same thing with our riders, maximizing the rider to fit you.
And talking about you, you're somebody who works out, lifts weights, so you're changing constantly physically, and you're going to need to change your suit. And it's nice to have a machine that kind of, as you change, even on an hourly basis. I know you've mentioned before, how you started that position may not be the same as when you end it. Um, so you can
Abs-
change it during.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So from an ergonomics position or from an ergonomic standpoint, the ability to move that rider into different positions throughout the day helps eliminate fatigue. The job is still incredibly repetitive, and you're going to have a lot of time and muscle fatigue doing these particular things. But our goal is to actually allow you to put the machine into a different position to then minimize that. Or on the other side of the equation, like in our traditional machines, um, take advantage of the machine's intelligence and the machine's processing capability to make up for some of those mistakes as you get tired throughout the day. If you have a tendency to drag your B more often, well, let's compensate for that. Or if you have a tendency to miss the P when you go to hit the end combination, or have a tendency to stack, let's really minimize those mistakes. Let's fit the rider to you.
Talking about the technology um, used in your machines, I know it differs from other machines in the terms of when you press a key, the way the actual mechanism works is different. Some are using magnets, some are using touch whatever. You're the like touch whatever. That's a technical term. Um, can you explain how yours is different? Why you feel it's better? Obviously, is why you use it. So
Sure. So there's three major technologies in four major technologies in machines at the moment. And I'll try and keep it as least technical as possible. Sometimes I have a tendency to delve into it. There's mechanical machines, which are, think of a light switch. They're either on and off, two physical plates make contact, and that's how you get a keystroke. Um, there's optical machines, which is what the Geminis and the Revolutions used to be. And think of that like your garage door safety switch. There's a little light beam that crosses a path, and if something's in the way, then the machine knows to register a stroke. There's magnetic-based machines, which actually make up the majority of the machines at this point. Our machine is a magnetic-based machine. So is Stenograph's Diamante and Wave. So is the impression writer. Now, how that technology is implemented makes all the difference in the world. In terms of all of us, the advantages are that because we have a magnet, as the key moves away from the sensor, it allows us to discern how fast that key is traveling, what distance it's traveling, how long it's held down, all this information that we can then compile into an actual stroke. Where we differ from other people is we differ in our algorithm, basically the math behind the machine. So in our original Generation 1 machines, we had a processor that was about 5 times faster than the closest competitor. And now in our Generation O machines, we actually have a processor that's 5 times faster than our previous one. So we're about 25 times faster than our next closest competitor. All that allows us to do is more effectively make intelligent decisions, what would appear to be dynamically or on the fly for the end user. So we can make a much more intelligent decision and monitor the keystrokes more effectively. So if you think of flash photography or a strobe light where you see like little pictures, we can take about 1,000 or 1,200 of those a second, which lets us really see where the key sits. And it just gets down to accuracy. I could describe the whole differences in algorithms, but most of the time I find reporters don't care. What you are going to care about and Susan is an example, and I just know I'm picking at her because she's in the middle of my screen. But we're about to release our easiest version of this protocol yet. So in her current machine, it's all been about percentages and numbers and moving things up and down. And in this new one, it's much more intuitive. It's much more drag and drop friendly. I'm doing this, so drag the slider this direction, and it will automatically correct for it. So because we have this new super fast processor inside our machines, we can do stuff that's cooler and easier for you guys.
Joanne has a question. Can all parts of the machine be hooked through Bluetooth? She's not a fan of cables.
Yeah, our machines actually include Wi-Fi. Our court reporting machines, our cart machines, and our capture machines all have Bluetooth built into them. We partner with StenoCast to come up with a dongle that we call Simply Awesome. It gets rid of all of the Blue Soleil software and all of the headaches. You basically plug the dongle in, turn the machine on, it turns blue, and you're done. It's just all about simplifying it again. Everybody used to use Blue Soleil. It was the best thing at the time, but quite honestly, after what have we been on it, about 6 years, it's an antiquated technology and it's a pain in the butt. So instead of having Windows wreck it or antivirus software wreck that connection, we now can just bypass all of those things. We came out with that about 6 months ago.
What has been the standard time period that new machines come out? Like for you guys anyways.
For us, no standard time frame. It's ranged anywhere from 10 months at the shortest to 4 years at the longest. 3 years at the longest. The thing that we do differently is every time there's an improvement available, meaning if Joanne or Jackie or Glenn had an idea that we could implement into our machine and it made sense, we do it. Then we make it backward compatible or make it available to everybody that already has equipment. So I was saying Susan upgraded from her original Gen 1 to a Gen O, which is our newest generation. What we did was we actually took her machine, we pulled out all of the electronics and the mechanicals in it and put new electronics and mechanicals into it. In her case, there may be a feature that comes out in the future. Not saying there is, Susan. I'm just saying hypothetical. I don't have anything on the market for that. Hypothetically, there could be a feature in the future for something else that we might do mechanically inside of the machine that we would then make retrofit to her machine. It's all about that upgrade path. I used to be much more concerned about making changes or improvements to the machine, but what I've realized is the faster we can make minor improvements to the product, whether it's through software or hardware, the better the end user experience is. And as long as we make it competitive or make it price sensitive so that we know that you can get into it and not spend a ton of money, it's a worthwhile thing. It's better for you to be on better technology. It's better for us to have you on better technology. And then as fast as new ideas come out, if we can implement them, we'll build better ones. So generations of machines could be as far as 3 years apart. But in realistic terms, I mean, we're always making little improvements, whether through software or whatever, virtually all the time to our equipment. The goal is to make it better all the time. Night, day, morning, it doesn't matter.
Right. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to send me a message in the messenger, raise your flag, or unmute your microphone, or you can raise your hand too. So continuing on that path, anything on your plate now, anything interesting that you wish to share, that you want to share, things you see coming up, anything like that?
From a machine standpoint, or do you want to head into the other part of our business now?
Let's stay on machines.
Okay. From a machine standpoint, we are releasing, and we've started pre-selling at this annual convention. We showed off the first prototype of it, but we're releasing our Generation O ergonomic. So it's a wholly redesigned ergonomic machine. And we've been telling people for about 5 or 6 months now that we're going to come out with this machine, and we've been taking back orders. Something that we're a little bit different about. We're going to tell you when a new machine is on its way or imminently on its way so that we can give you a choice. You can get the machine we currently have, or you can hang out for a little while and we can get you the newer machine when it does come out. That way you're not stuck. The worst thing is you find out, and I did this when I bought my Dodge, right? I bought a Dodge, but when they're coming out. This was right before Dodge went bankrupt or whatever. And they had it's 3.2% financing. We've never done anything like that. And the next week they had a 0%. I asked, but no one's going to tell me. So I would have come back a week later. In this case, we're going to tell you, we got a new machine coming out. It's going to be available then. And the other thing that we're getting ready to do is all about students. Currently, right now, student machines, the lowest price student machine you're going to get into, quality student machine is ours or the Waves. I think their machines are priced at $1,500. Ours are a little bit more expensive than that. We offer a bigger feature set. We offer upgradability. But come January timeframe-ish, I'm going to be releasing a new student product that is going to, well, in my opinion, really change the way students are viewed. It will be an inexpensive product, but it is anything but cheap. It takes advantage of that same Infinity adjustable technology. It minimizes some of the feature set, but there'll be 2 riders that become available early next year, January or so of next year, that are going to just be super inexpensive and really, really good for people to use and able to move on, and super low maintenance, the things that you always want from a student standpoint. I'll also be introducing what I'm characterizing as our new indestructible tripod. It'll carry a 10-year manufacturer warranty. Doesn't count if you beat somebody with it, but other than that, it's completely warranted. The fact is, tripods in the market today, whether they be in stands or stenographs, they just leave so much to be desired that I decided, I don't know, a handful of months ago to make our own, light, compact, super sturdy. And the goal is just to make, again, if we can make a tripod better, then we'll make the tripod better. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll try and make it better.
But to be clear, you can't beat anybody with it?
You can beat a lot of people with it, but we won't warranty it.
Right.
However, we do warranty your machine if you get it on video. If you do pound an attorney with your machine and you get it on video, we get a copy and we'll fix your machine. Yeah. Not paying for your jail time, though.
That's good for publicity. Yeah. Just a quick side thing. You have a new 3D printer. Is that more of a toy, or is that an actual, this is good for business, is how we're making our machines, or what is that exactly?
I bought a 3D printer. All right. I must confess that it's pretty awesome. and if you're a dork who likes to make stuff, it's even better. And if you're a dork who likes to make, I don't know, rubber band guns and other things like that, it might be a bit better yet. But it's an expensive rubber band gun maker. What it is, though, is it allows me to more efficiently prototype and design equipment, test it. It's not a tool for making machines. I just don't. It doesn't give the aesthetic finish. It's typically rougher, and it's not nearly as pretty as you get from a molded part design. But if I want to actually prototype something like the student machine that I'm working on, that will come out, I was able to design it, prototype all the shell and the basics, and have it printed out in about a day, which is ridiculous. I found out where I made a few mistakes. I did tell somebody, kind of makes me a lazy engineer. And this is, take that with a grain of salt, is I can see immediately where the mistake might be. I don't have to think about it. I can just print it, make it, and then I can go back and modify it and print another one and have another one in another day. So it's really, really nice for being able to just do rapid prototyping stuff. I've actually also learned that there's new materials out like carbon fiber that I can start printing, and then heat cure, and it's printed parts are the wave of the future for virtually everything, whether it be housing or homes or cars or all sorts of stuff. But right now, just from a prototype and get it done, get it built deal, there's nothing better, because I used to have to outsource that, and at a minimum it'd be 2 to 3 weeks before I'd get back a sample to know if what I built in the computer was actually going to work. It's different to have it in the computer. Everything looks like it'll work, but when you get it and you put it together and you play with it and you can feel it, you'll know, man, I can do this better. So that's, it's a great tool, and it makes cool toys for my kids and me.
That matters, yeah. Before we go on to the other things you guys do, knowing your group, your company for a long time, it seems like you're the guy. It's a relatively small company in terms of if somebody has issues, if somebody has questions, they kind of deal with you the bulk of the time.
Used to be the case, not as much anymore. That was the case for a number of years. We now have 5 techs besides me that handle telephone calls. So we've been a growing company. We've grown every year since I took over the company. Mainly grown through word of mouth and through our product set. And whether that be, we grow on a dollar volume, we grow on a machine volume, we grow on customer volume every year. So it's been a good business that way. And I think the area that we differ from a lot of our competitors in is that I pour a lot of what we bring back into R&D, back into research and development, back into making new things. Um, so, but at the end of the day, if there's a question that gets stuck and can't be answered by somebody else, it ends up on my desk,
Right.
or it ends up in my office because somebody doesn't know how to answer it. It's usually a interpretation more than an actual difficult question, but yeah, eventually they end up on my desk.
Right. Okay. Peggy, I'm gonna unmute you. Oh, you're unmuted. Go for it.
Hi, Jason. Um, as a student that still uses paper notes, um, I have an attachment to my paper notes. So I was wondering if you, except I don't have an attachment to the shipping costs of buying paper. You spoke about something about electronic notes. Now, is that
Yeah.
something different than the screen on the
Yes.
machine? Can you
Yes.
talk a little more about that?
Sure. 2 years ago, in a conversation with another head of another school, they had asked for basically a notes display. But when you think of notes, electronic notes, they're wholly different than what you get on your paper. The reason why a lot of teachers and people like paper is that you can actually see a representation of why you made a mistake. If you drug a letter into the equation, you'll see a light imprint. If you stacked a stroke on paper, stacking never was an issue until people moved into electronic machines, because when you stacked on a paper machine, you had a half advance. So your first hand went down, you had a half advance, and your second hand came down, and you saw that delineation on the paper so you could read it back and write it. Well, once electronic machines came into play, that no longer was the case, because the stroke was only sent whenever the last key was released. So it always showed up on the computer screen. So if that initial stroke was STPH and FPLT was your final stroke, and you put those together, you want them on two separate lines, and it came on one line, it was a stack. What we've done is we've created an electronic version of paper, but more intelligent. So with paper-like notes, you're able to hook up any one of our infinities, whether it be Court, Student, or whatever, to this little tool we have, Infinity 2, and then you write into a tool called PLN, or paper-like notes. In the center column, you will have how you actually wrote the stroke. So if you stacked a particular letter, like run and ing, and you stack the, or that's a bad example, but again, if you stacked a letter, what you would see is in the middle, you'd see the first stroke come out on the first line, and then you'd see a small gap, and then you'd see the second stroke show up. But on the left-hand column, you'd have the computer representation of what the actual keystroke was. So your computer would have seen the stack. However, when you wrote it, you actually wrote it this way. But more importantly than that, it allows us to track drags and drops and misses and all sorts of stuff. And then on the right-hand side, there's a column that allows, and I'd be happy to do a demo for anybody. I mean, if anybody wants to call the office, I can set those up and we can do a remote demo so you can see it as well. But that right-hand column, we're allowed to type in comments and notes. Again, think of this as a teaching tool where you can make comments, this was a mistake, this is what it should have been, and then save that file for later. You can print it out. I took it a step further. You can actually add your dictionary to that tool. And what it'll do then is it'll actually show you on the left-hand column. So it'll, on your printed out page, I'm going to draw, on a printed out page, I'll draw a little picture for you real quick. At the top, you'd have, I don't know if you can see this, all your text would be in this box per se. And then you'd have a column, and it would tell you the steno, and the next column over would be the word. So it'll actually go steno stroke, and then word, and it will associate every steno stroke with a given word. That way, you immediately can see where mistakes were made, but the goal was to make it so that schools or teachers or mentors could easily look at your work and give you back an instant reflection as to what to work on. So take paper, make it better, make it electronic so they can email these documents back and forth, and you have this super cool tool that we call paper-like notes. It's all about a teaching tool. So it's great for people that are doing theory, but it's also great when you want to go in and tweak your writer. If you're not sure when you're making a mistake, why you're making a mistake. Did I actually hit that B? I just didn't hit it all the way. Did I write the period, but I missed the T? In paper-like notes, you can actually see it because it'll represent, if you hit a key lightly, it'll make it a small letter. A little bit harder, a little bit bigger. A little bit harder, and it's a normal size, it'll be normal sized. Hit it, overstroke it, it'll make it bigger, bigger, bigger. So this way we can, again, look at paper-like notes and tweak the machine to fit the end user. Just super simple.
Could you use that parallel to your CAT software?
The answer is sort of. Depends on the CAT software. So yes, in our Geno machines, it is possible. You have to start the process in a certain order. You have to start paper-like notes and then start your CAT software. But yes, it is possible to, in theory, do them both simultaneously. You have to do it over cable. You can't do that Wi-Fi at that point. There's just too much information being sent to do over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But you can do it over the USB cable.
Okay, so this isn't something that's built into the machine. It's an add-on.
No, it's part of the machine. It's part of the machine. Oh yeah, no, it's part of the machine and part of the software that goes with it on all of our new machines.
Oh, okay. So this isn't something extra.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
All of our stuff comes included. You'll get whatever model of machine you get. If you get a student machine, it doesn't have wireless, but it is wired. You get the carrying case, you get the Infinity 2, the paper-like note software, all of that goes with it. We're the only machine that can do this, however. There's no other machine on the market that can do this tool. Stenograph will talk about something called Steno X-ray. It's not the same at all. Its attempt, I think, was to do something similar. It will show you how long a key was held down, but its actual end result isn't very good. The original school that we worked with on this concept brought that up. They brought up Steno X-ray. I'm familiar with the way that it works. So if anybody has a Wave or a Diamante and have used Steno X-ray, you'll know what I'm talking about. Kind of creates a running line as to how long the key was held down. But in this circumstance, paper-like notes is just a much more intuitive method of figuring this stuff out.
I wanted to let you know that I was at the convention in San Francisco and took the opportunity to try out all the machines.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the Infinity. So it's going to be my reward when I'm about 180. Mark talked me back. I wanted one. I was convinced it was the bow and not the Indian, but it's the Indian. It's
depends on what bow you're riding on. Let's be fair. I don't know what bow you're riding on, but there are. I mean, I do a lot of presentations on machine technology and how to maximize what you have, whether that be a really old machine or a new machine or our machine. There's different methodologies to actually make sure your machine works as well as it can for you. But sometimes you just, depending on the technology you're on, there can just be a lot of pain in implementation trying to write certain ways.
I'm on a workhorse dinosaur. It's a Stentura 400 SRT. It's, you know.
Yeah, it's not a bad machine. It never was. A downside to it is it typically has a really long stroke on average. Inherently, it's very limited in its adjustability. That really is just a byproduct of the mechanical switch design. But in terms of machines, it can get much worse. It can get much worse. So it's not a bad machine. Stenograph has made. I mean, they made some good products over the course of years. So don't think that. Because we make the Infinities that I'm at all blind to what's good about our competitors or what's bad about our product. If anybody is more interested in how to make a product better, whether it be mine or anyone else's, I'd like to meet them. It's basically an OCD condition.
Thank you. I love the machine.
Thank you.
I wanted to take it home with me.
Any other machine questions while we're here? Raise your hand, unmute your microphone before I move on to the next. Okay, good. Okay, so you have now moved into another area of steno. Why don't you throw that out there a little bit?
So it's been an interest of mine all along to eventually move to a complete package, the ability for us to be able to do some of the things that our competitors can do. Basically touch both the software and the hardware side of the equation. Well, we've got the hardware side figured out. So a few months ago, we came out with our first version of CAT software. Apeiron is the name of it, and Apeiron is a continuation of a few other products, or another product that's been in the market. Actually, I'd worked on the original predecessor to this software some 13 years ago. The real fact is it's really hard to delineate pros and cons of software just simply by going through a feature set. I can tell you my software is more intelligent. I can tell you that my software will do X or do Y. But at the end of the day, they're all fundamentally the same thing. So what I've worked on is that we want our software to be fast editing, a very intuitive editing platform, one that you never have to pick your hands up off the keyboard, one that you never go to your mouse to use. Because at the end of the day, to maximize your dollar value, you need to have two things. One, quality writing to begin with, because that's going to minimize the amount of editing time. And two, a super fast editing platform. And if you have those two things, you'll make, all the decisions in the world, and you'll be able to make more dollars per hour doing your work. The other thing that I feel is wholly missing from this industry is universal compatibility. So while our software doesn't do it at the moment, our actual current first project for our software is to make it Scopus ready for everybody, which is unheard of. You can export an RTF from your CAT software and have another Scopus import an RTF, but you lose things along the way. And if they're on case and you're on Eclipse, you have problems or breakdowns. That's not what I'm headed for. I'm talking about a program that actually is universally compatible. You can take an RTF from case. Now, remind you, I keep saying RTF. They're supposed to be the same thing, but somewhere, 15, 20 years ago, a bunch of CAT people decided they were going to all make them different, which quite honestly pisses me off as an engineer, but at the same time is not that complicated. So you could take an RTF out of one CAT software, you'll be able to bring it directly into our software, edit it, and then save it back into their native format. That way, it doesn't matter what CAT software you're on. You can use our editing platform if you're a proofreader or a Scopus, and at the same time, it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff moving forward. You'll be universally compatible. What we already have done to make our software more universally compatible is, so for our Case Catalyst users, our Steno CAT users, and next will be Eclipse, is we've actually mapped all of their default keyboard commands into our software so that you simply can choose Eclipse as your editing platform, get on board, edit like you were in Eclipse but using our software. And then if you want to, you can slowly migrate out to our faster platform, because at the end of the day, all of these systems claim certain things, artificial intelligence, all of those things. And they do a decent job of doing punctuation and that kind of stuff and English aspects. But really what you need is an engine that lets you just edit super fast, because that's where you're going to make that's where you're going to make up your time, or make up time. If you're spending an hour writing and 2 hours editing, it may not seem like much if I can save you 10% or 20%, but if I can get you down to an hour and a half of editing instead of 2 hours editing, it's way more work that you can get done for in a lot less time and basically maximize what you make per hour.
Did somebody raise their flag? If you did, you can unmute yourself. I don't know. It shows me that somebody raised it, but it doesn't say who. That doesn't help me much. Okay. Yeah, whatever. Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the price point going to be a little different too than what's out there now?
The price point is a bit different than what's out there right now. So our introductory price point on our professional version is $17.76. Whoever can guess that, shouldn't be too hard. About time we had a revolution in some CAT software, and it seems like the appropriate time. So why not take our American Revolution and move it a bit further? But at the same time, we've also made it available to all of Mark's students. He has a code that he can give out to any of you guys. You can download it from our website and use it for free. You'll just need to register with us, download it from infinitytraditional.com, and you can use it at your leisure. As far as support goes, we do all that free support just via email. But it's not a super complex software. And then the next project I'm working on it for now is we're porting it from our current programming language to a much more up-to-date language, which will then allow us to either place it in the cloud so it can be accessed remotely, or be able to synchronize it remotely. There's a lot of new features that will become available with it. It wasn't too long ago I actually just completed the whole source map, basically how every piece interacts with every other piece, so that we can then change those pieces to be more efficient. The one thing that we will keep is the editing platform, which is just ridiculously fast. And I keep coming back to that because that's at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. I mean, we can argue about where a comma goes, but we can't really argue about how quickly you can get a transcript produced.
I assume at some point you're going, oh, will it ever work with Mac?
Natively? Probably not, Glenn.
It actually wasn't Glenn.
It wasn't?
I know.
Oh, sorry. It was Jackie.
Yeah, it was Jackie.
So I can't say never. I will say we probably will end up on an Android OS beforehand. Hold on. I know. I use Apple, have all my Apple products. I have a Mac as well. There's some nice advantages to it. It's just such a small industry, and Mac, you have to write in a different object-oriented language than you do for everything else. So it's kind of a frustrating choice. There are some conversion tools I've heard about that supposedly will move it from one platform to another. I hold out a little bit of hope, but I'm not going to hold my breath for that realization to come to pass. But to be honest, I know it's been always we're all going to move to Mac. I've heard it a number of times, and I've seen it. I've heard it for 10 years, and I still don't think that it's going to happen. Not now.
Will it have a feature? Oh, go ahead.
Well, Eclipse has the iPad app already.
That's not Mac, though. That's just an application. That's easy to do. So we can already do an output to another device. That's not an actual.
So that doesn't mean they're closer than you?
No.
Okay.
No, doesn't mean anything. That's a network platform choice. That means nothing. It just means they've written an application that they can write out network output to. It has no bearing on the rest of the core functionality. So I had heard that Jeremy had Eclipse, and I talked to him often. I've heard that he was working on a Mac version, but I've also heard he was working on a Mac version 8 years ago, and 7 years ago, and 5 years ago. So maybe they'll shock the industry and come out with it, and then they'll get 5% of you that are using Mac in core reporting.
There's more of us that are using Mac.
I doubt it. Not maybe 10%, which is the industry trend anyway, but it's a pretty small. I like them, but I run half my crap through Parallel, so I don't even get to take advantage of them.
I refuse to run Parallel, so I won't do it.
You do VMware?
No, I have a PC laptop and I have a Mac laptop. They're two separate beings. I refuse.
Oh, okay. So Jackie's case, she'll just use more than one.
I just carry 2 laptops with me.
Fair enough.
Susan asked, will it have a feature like Connection Magic that's in Eclipse?
Yes, that is one of the things I'm working on, and that also is tied directly to how that the iPad app works pretty much as well. So moving to this new cloud-based environment will let us do a little bit better version of Connection Magic isn't bad. It's good. I mean, they did a decent job on it. No complaints there, and we'll mimic some of that use case, some of the use cases. I like it. I like the way that it works. And I had another one of our customer, Allison Wise, demo it for me one day when she's in court. And there's nothing like being able to read transcripts as they go on some 800 miles away. I like it. It's neat.
Joanne, if we have the student version, is it similar to the pro version, or what are the differences?
Yeah, it's very similar. It just doesn't have. It'll produce a file that has marked pages. This is not for sale, that kind of thing. But fundamentally, it's the same software. Honestly, the deal with software is, and it's all key code based. So we can afford, or we can make a choice once we've developed the pro version. We can release the student version, at little or no cost. Generally, it'd be $300 for it. But again, Mark has a code for it. Get it from it. Download it for free. You can use it. You know what they say about free, though. If people think it's free, then they'll treat it like it's free. We're trying not to do that, but at the same time, we know that if you use the software for a period of time, you'll be able to get used to it and use it in your job profession.
Glenn asked, what about multiple COM port output as required by Bridge?
Yep, we can output to more than one COM port at once already.
Well, look at that. It's all coming together.
It's taken a while. I mean, so the background is I've had 10 years in the machine business, right? We've had 10 years in the machine business, and we've had our software for a few months. So it took me a lot longer to get a grasp on what we needed to do to grow our writer business. I expect that our software over the course of the next couple of years is going to be quite fun for people to use and grow with. And if we keep the price point right, we can provide a full solution. I guess that's something I didn't mention. All that paper-like note stuff that we were talking about, Peggy, and that I made a mention of, because we have all that capability in our machines, we can embed that intelligence directly into our software, which will allow it to basically be more intelligent. So if it sees that you drug a B a little bit or it didn't quite register, it can then compare your dictionary and say, yep, I should have had a B there, or nope, this most likely would have a B, display it in a different color on your screen, and next thing you know, you have an even better translation version than you would have otherwise.
So we got about 5 minutes left here, so we'll start wrapping things up. But Deborah has a question. So writing at 190, what machine should I be using, especially if I am able to start doing some volunteer type work and want to be able to see it translated real time as I write?
I guess to clarify this question, is this a question of should you be using a student machine or a professional machine at 190, or should you be using an Infinity or a Diamante or a 400 or whatever the case may be?
I'm guessing. Well, let me unmute you, Deborah. Hang on one sec. Go ahead, Deborah.
All right. I'm sorry. And what was that question again you had?
Oh, so the question was that at 190 speed, you're getting close to graduating. So is your question, should I be using a student machine? Are you buying a new machine? Are you buying a professional machine? Or should I be using an Infinity versus a Diamante versus an Impression versus a Passport Touch? Just trying to clarify so I can answer your question more effectively.
Right now I'm on the Stentura 400.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I don't know really what direction or what I should be.
So are you thinking like
towards,
you're in your home stretch now? Are you going to want a student machine before you get your final machine, or should you go at this point to a final machine?
Pretty much,
right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a great question.
Yes.
It's a great question, and let me answer it as honestly as I can. So we deal with students all the time, and we'll have students that call up and they're like, they just started school, or maybe they're at 60 or 80 words a minute, and there's two different types of students. They'll want to buy their professional machine right then. And if they want to buy a professional Infinity, I will steer them away from it. I will steer them back to a student machine. They can buy it if they want to. You can do whatever you want to. Who am I to tell you how to spend your money? But if you're a really new student, if you're just starting or you don't know anything about court reporting, the fallout rate is so high that I would rather see you get a less expensive machine so that you're not stuck with a $5,000 machine if you decide not to go that direction. I think I'm a fluky person that way. I don't think I fall into the industry average. Now, having said that, if you're closing in, 160 for me is kind of the crossover speed. 180 and above is pretty well defined. You've gotten to the place already. You've spent enough time. You know that you're going to finish. If you commit and you spend the time doing it, it's not a question of can I get the speed. It's just a matter of when. So that one, I have a tendency to let people say, well, I'm almost done, or I'm at 200. Buying a professional machine, I won't ever steer them away from that. It makes sense for them to get a professional machine. If they know they're going to do depositions, then maybe they get into a court model. If their plan is to just to do cart work, let's put you in a cart model. Then if you decide you want to go into court work later, we can upgrade it. The other alternative is if you're just looking for that little boost to gain, 5 or 10 or 20 words a minute more, and a machine that's a little more comfortable, a little less cumbersome, like the 400 or something like that, there's be no harm in getting a student machine and then just upgrading later when you're ready to on our machine. Now, and an Infinity. Now, if you're going to do this with somebody else, nobody has a program like that. You can't get a Wave and then upgrade it to a Diamante. You're going to buy a new machine. You'll get like $1,000 credit or whatever, but you're going to lose money in that aspect. With the Infinities, you never lose anything. So you just upgrade the machine later on and you're good to go.
Right.
Does that help?
I was not aware of this. This is really great. But one other question, what is the difference between the CART and the CAT or court reporter machine?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just
so, no, that's okay. Let's go student, captioner, CART, and court. So a student machine is our very base machine. It's our least expensive machine. We make them with or without screen. That's really simple. the basic fundamental is, oh, she stole Peggy's question. The basic fundamental is that in the student machine, we have a very limited memory, and we don't have wireless capability, and we don't have some of the faster processing capability we do in the court machines. So with the capture model, we put the faster processor on board. We get the wireless capability, but there is no memory at all, because in the captioner's case, if you're not writing to your computer, it doesn't matter if you're writing at all. It's irrelevant. Who cares? And then our CART model has 2 backups and say about 100 pages per backup. That way you could be in a CART setting where you're actually writing for a student, and if your computer were to go down, you can tran that note file later. And then in a CORT model, you have basically unlimited file size, as big as the cards are, audio recording, internal microphones, 4 backups, wireless. It's the full kit and caboodle. You can always use a court reporter model for CART, for captioning for students, but you can't go the other direction, if that makes sense. If you need backups, you can't use a captioner.
Great. Let's make this our last question for today.
All right, thank you.
From Glenn, how are the writer upgrades handled? Is there a loaner or something?
There can be, but typically writer upgrades are handled pretty simply. We try and schedule them. We know there's going to be a slight break, and what we do is we schedule it and say, your writer here will be on Tuesday. We'll have your upgrade completed by Wednesday or Thursday. We'll ship it back out to you. You'll have it the next Monday or Tuesday. So service, we have loaner programs and that kind of thing available to you, or if your machine breaks, we have loaners available. But really on an upgrade, the goal is, you're getting your machine back. So to get a loaner and then set it up or use it or whatever is kind of a pain. But usually there's a little bit of a break there between I'm a student, I'm finished, and now I'm a reporter. And so we'll schedule that and just have the upgrade done in a couple of days. And I'll hopefully be able to announce something in the next month or so that we'll have another facility here in the U.S. that will be able to do those upgrade work for us as well. I will know like on the 15th or 16th how that's going to go. So, I guess that's something different for us as well. We believe in having service providers around the rest of the country, whereas all of the other hardware manufacturers, all of them, the only way you can get their newest machine serviced is to send it back to their factory. So if you're in Florida and you want to have your Diamante service, it goes back to Chicago. If you're in California, it goes back to Chicago. If you're in New York, it goes back to Chicago. In our case, if you're in California, you take it to the steno doctor and have it fixed there. If you're in Texas, you go to Houston dictating the steno. If you're in Florida, it goes down to Steno Works. So our goal is to have all of our machines serviced in more than one location around the country, which I think is better for the end consumer because it also limits the amount of travel time. But I'm super picky about who and how our machines are serviced, who services them and how they do it. So.
All right, we got to wrap this up. Thank you very much, Jason, for coming on by and answering questions. Of course, you can continue this dialogue through email or through Facebook. You can reach their website. I know one domain name is infinitytraditional.com. There's probably some other ones
There
as
are.
well. And then if you do a search on Facebook for
Infinity Steno Machines. Yep.
Steno Machines, you can find them there. Send Jason messages and pretty much harass them all you want. So I appreciate you all coming, and thanks, Jason. And
You're welcome.
we will see you all online, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
All right,
Jason.
bye-bye. You're welcome.